For centuries, the Knights Templar have existed between history and legend. These so-called warrior monks accused of heresy, guardians of forbidden knowledge, and custodians of a treasure that vanished without a trace. But according to Tim Hogan, the true Templar mission began long before the history books suggest. It was a search for the remnants of a forgotten civilization and the sacred technology it left behind. From secret excavations beneath the Temple Mount to evidence of voyages across the Atlantic, from the mysteries of the ancient Egyptian pyramids to Atlantis, alchemy, and the Ark of the Covenant, this episode literally has it all. This is the story of a hidden tradition, a secret society, one that claims humanity's past is far older, far stranger, and far more advanced than we have been told. So if you were interested in secret societies, the Knights Templar, and history that may have been erased, well, this is the episode for you. So sit back, relax, and welcome to camp. Tim Hogan, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Thank you so much for joining me in the tent. I am so excited to chat with you. Your area of expertise, the books you've authored, the podcast episodes you've done, all tap on the things that I love to talk about.
Well, I love to talk about them too, so we should have a good conversation.
Going to be awesome. I mean, I imagine today we're going to jump through, Freemasonry, the Knights Templar, secret societies, theosophy, ancient technology, Nikola Tesla, the pyramids, Stonehenge maybe.
Yeah, we could hit on it all.
Everything under the sun. I'm so excited. I am always just titillated by secret teachings.
Yeah.
And lost information. And you are a plethora of that type of knowledge.
I'm the storehouse of it. So
can you just tell us, what is the Knights Templar, and what is your association with them?
Sure. So I'm the 33rd Grand Master since Jacques de Molay of the Knights Templar, and we'll talk about who Jacques de Molay was in a minute. But basically, the Templars, they were an organization that was secretly started as early as 1096, when some French families got together. They had all come from largely Gnostic backgrounds. Many of them came out of the Albigensian tradition out of southern France, also known as the Cathars. The Cathars were a Gnostic group who had a different form of Christianity, shall we say, than traditional Christianity, in which they believed that anybody through their own efforts could attain a gnosis or divine knowledge, a revelatory knowledge, and you didn't need a priest to do it. And that's what Jesus really came here to do, was to help people attain this enlightenment, this enlightened state. And it was believed that you had to attain this enlightened state before you died. Otherwise, you would reincarnate and have to keep going until you got it. Right. So anyhow, this was kind of the background. So these Gnostic families, by the way, they also referred to themselves as the poor of Christ. And this is part of the reason why the Templars later referred to themselves as the poor knights of Christ. And they adopted the same red equal-armed cross from the Cathars.
The one that you have on your jacket here.
Correct, yeah. I mean, it was a slightly different version, but the same equal arm. It was equal-armed, and it was a red cross. Now, standard historians will say the Templar Order didn't start till 1118, and this is because what happened was, as the Templars formed officially, They formed in Constantinople in 1096. Hugh de Paynes and Godfrey de Saint Omer went down into Constantinople. They were initiated by a organization known as the Brothers of the East, that were also passing on another Gnostic tradition that was known as the Johannite tradition. It was it's a tradition that viewed the Johns of the Bible as passing on secret information, and that the leaders of this tradition assumed the name of John from John the Evangelist, all the way up till 1096. There was a guy by the name of Michael Selos, who was a very famous scholar at the time, particularly within the Eastern Church, and he was passing on this secret information along with a guy by the name of Theoclete. And they initiated Hugh de Paynes and Godfrey de St. Omer, gave them the mission to start the Templar Order. The Templars, they went down into Jerusalem, specifically because they were looking for lost documents, lost technology, and also to try to preserve things that they knew, artifacts that they knew were down there, that the Templars of the East, or the Brothers of the East had been preserving these traditions. They wanted to make sure they didn't. You had to keep in mind at the time the Crusades had just started, and there was a fear that as the Crusaders went down into Jerusalem, that they were going to either destroy unwittingly or capture certain artifacts and turn them over to the Roman Church. And nobody wanted that to happen. So that's part of the reason why the Templar Order was founded.
Hey, real quick, most people who watch this channel aren't subscribed. And when you subscribe, you help the channel grow and you stay in the loop with every new drop. Religion Camp, History Camp, and Camp Gagnon. Now let's get back to it. Now, the mainstream story with the Templars is that they were kind of protecting pilgrims as they traveled from Europe to Jerusalem.
Right, so this was the cover story, really. So as the Templars got into Jerusalem by 1118, they were granted an area known as King Solomon's Stables that was under the Temple Mount, or near the Temple Mount. It's right near the Temple Mount. And from there, they set up a headquarters. The official story was that they were created to help protect pilgrims that were making their way to Jerusalem at the time. It was it was dangerous to travel from Europe to Jerusalem, and the odds of being robbed were pretty high. So the Templar Order would not only give people safe passage from Europe into the Holy Land on their boats and by land, but they also set up the first banking system where people could deposit their money in, let's say, a Templar commandery in Paris, and then when they arrived in the Holy Land, they could retrieve their money that they needed, and this way they didn't get robbed on the way. So this was the official cover, but what it did is it accomplished two things. On the one hand, it allowed, a good cover for the Templar Order, and in fact, for the first 8 years, the Templar Order didn't do much of any of that. I mean, they did a little bit of it, but what they were primarily doing was digging under the Temple Mount.
Right. How many knights were there in the early
Originally,
stages?
Originally there were 9 Templars, and for the first 9 years, that's all there was
right.
9 people.
I mean, 9 guys trying to protect this super long route to Jerusalem seems unrealistic.
And any pilgrims that came to the Holy Land, I mean, even that's ridiculous, just 9 people. I mean, but then after that, they were, in fact, moving people by setting up this banking system, which is, by the way, the same banking system we pretty much use today, but it was invented by the Templar Order, and they would do this for a small fee, which is, part of how the Templar Order started to make its money. But it also started to get money out of the hands of the monarchs and the church,
right,
and keep it in the hands of the people at the time, and which was a huge thing. I mean, it was a shift of power by doing that.
They got extraordinarily wealthy.
And yeah, the Templar Order got extraordinarily wealthy as a result of it, which allowed them to build up their fleets of ships, to buy property for farming, to get their own food, and it allowed them to also fuel resources to start to build like the Gothic cathedrals of France. Quite frankly, they were the initial funders of that. And it started out they would build their own commanderies at different places around Europe, and then from there it spread out. They started building cathedrals.
And as the story goes, this goes on for maybe a couple hundred years until the Pope eventually shuts them down on the grounds of heresy.
Right. So part of what happened too during this time was the Templars, they protected pilgrims in the Holy Land, but they protected all pilgrims, which also included Jewish people. If they wanted to worship there, the Templars protected them. They protected Muslims, the Muslim right to worship. If there were pilgrims in the Holy Land that were Muslim that wanted to worship at a site, the Templars would protect their right to do it. They protected the sacred regardless of its source. And part of this was, again, because they had this secret Gnostic beginning in which they recognized the divinity within all people and all religions. They saw that every religion was probably started by someone who had a Gnostic experience or a divine revelation. And that case, the Templars saw that as coming from God, so they would protect it. So they had no problem getting along with people of all faiths. They would get dragged into fighting sometimes when there were Muslim attacks primarily. But even Saladin, who was the head of the Islamic armies, he had been initiated into the Templar Order at one point in time.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so they
Saladin, like the great, Seljuk Turkic commander.
Correct. Yeah, he had. There was a book from the Middle Ages known as it was called the History of the Crusades at the time, but it was written clear back in the it was about 1200, but it talks about Saladin's initiation into the Templar Order. So they had a falling out later, but they always had a respect for each other. And whenever the Templars got dragged into fighting, it was because they were kind of forced to, because one of the other things that happened was very early on they received their rule or their guidance. It's like their book of conduct, their constitution from Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, who was a very famous personality within the Roman Church at the time. And with this, there was also patronage from the Roman Church initially. So the Templars were also, through Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, they were somewhat connected to the Cistercian order, which was a Roman Catholic order. And so they would find documents and things that needed to be translated. Oftentimes those would go to the Cistercians in order to translate and make available to the Roman Church. So now St. Bernard of Clairvaux himself was secretly a practicing druid, and he also was friends with Rashi of Troyes, who was a very famous Jewish Kabbalist. And so all these things had influence on the formation of the early Templar Order. And so the Templars had this Gnostic connection. They had a Druid connection through St. Bernard of Clairvaux. They had a Jewish Kabbalist tradition through Rashi of Troyes. and they had the Johannite connection in Constantinople, and they had an Eastern Orthodox connection through their time in Constantinople, and then they had this Roman Catholic patronage. So, I mean, it was a real fusion of ideas, but because there was this connection with the Roman Church very early on, there was kind of a deal that was set up early on that the Templars didn't have to answer to anybody but the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
So this gave them much freedom to not only meet with other cultures and explore ideas, but also look for secretly technology which they believe existed from a pre-Diluvian civilization. And it also allowed them to find documents and early sacred scriptures and texts that weren't public at the time and weren't published by the Roman Church or the Eastern Orthodox Church, for that matter.
And I think this goes without saying, but do you believe that they found this type of technology?
Yes. They found, according to our records, there were 6 arks that were found. First of all, which were like the Ark of the Covenant. They were found primarily in areas between Egypt and Lebanon. So that was one of the main technologies that was found, and that was believed to be an ancient Atlantean technology.
Right.
And we can talk about that some.
Right.
But
I want to jump into that. And before we go there, I just want to know the dilution, I guess, of the Templars and ultimately what happens to them with Jacques de Molay.
Yeah. So by 1307, there's basically the King of France owed a bunch of money to the Templar Order. He had been borrowing money from the Templar Order, and he owed the money. He knew they had a lot of money. He wanted to set himself up as the new war king, and in order to do that, he needed money, and he was out of money.
Mm-hmm.
But he knew that the Templars had a bunch because he had borrowed a bunch of money from them previously. The Pope at the time, Pope Clement V, he wanted the Templar Order. He felt that the Templar Order had become too independent. He wanted them to merge with the Knights Hospitaller at the time, which was a different crusading order. They were also known as the St. John the Hospitalier, as was their names. They later changed their names to the Knights of Malta.
Mm-hmm.
And they still exist technically on Malta, actually, as their headquarters.
And why did he want them to merge? Were these knights a little bit more, I guess, tied to the church?
100%. That's why. Yeah, he had more control over them. And if they merged, then he would assume the Templar buildings and would be able to put them under more control. Jacques de Molay, who was the Grand Master of the Templars at the time, he didn't want to have anything to do with that. He liked the independence the Templar Order had, and the Templar mission remained the same. They were still looking for artifacts. They knew the dangers of turning that over to the church because it would just disappear. Mm-hmm. They'd already turned certain things over to the church and saw how it would just disappear and not be seen again. And he was accustomed to the independence. I mean, one of the things that he had turned over to Jewish communities in Spain that the Templar Order had found were early remnants of, or early fragments of what was to become known as the Zohar,
right,
which was a Kabbalistic text. So the Templar Order, and this is according to traditional Jewish sources, the Templar Order had found these fragments in clay jars, much like the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Nag Hammadi Library. They had found remnants of the Zohar in these clay jars, and they, rather than keeping them for themselves, they turned it over to Jewish communities in Spain, which later translated. And in fact, the first people who published the Zohar in Spain also published the book Parzival by Wolfram von Eschenbach, which talks about the Templars being the guardians of the Holy Grail. So, and that was in the 1200s. So by 1307, the Pope was already familiar with the idea that the Templar Order was finding things that they weren't turning over to the Roman Church. So he wanted more control. So Pope Clement V and the King of France went into a conspiracy. They to suppress the Templar Order. By September 1307, they had issued arrest warrants throughout France, basically saying on October 13th, the Templar Order was to be rounded up and turned over to the King of France. And then there would be arrest orders all throughout Europe after that. Well, the Templar Order had spies. You know, they knew what was going on. They had gotten a hold of this information ahead of time. And so by October 13th, 1307, when the arrest was supposed to take place, the Templar Order had already known ahead of time that this was going to happen. They had, Jacques de Molay had stayed behind along with a few thousand Templars in Paris, just to make it appear as business as usual. But most of the Templars had actually fled France by that point and had brought all the treasures as well as everything that was in their treasure house and in the French commandery with them. They had loaded them on ships at La Rochelle, and the entire fleet of Templar ships had taken off the night before the arrests. So when the arrest orders came about on Friday, October 13th, 1307, which was the origin of Friday the 13th being an unlucky day, the King of France wasn't able to get anything. Everything had been moved and removed the night before on those ships, and the ships disappeared to history. People want to know, has always wondered what happened to them.
I'm sure you have many theories as to what happened to them.
Yes, yeah.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, we could get to that. So anyhow, Jacques de Molay was then rounded up along with these other Templars. They were imprisoned and tortured for 7 years, made to confess all kinds of false confessions,
like worshiping the severed head of Muhammad.
Worship. Well, they worshipped a severed head was what they were accused of. They were accused of worshiping something called the Baphomet,
right? And
then they, as well as having initiation ceremonies where they spit on the cross and the crucifix, and a bunch of other stuff.
I've heard that the translation that was used was Muhammad, and that perhaps that was the sort of creation of Baphomet.
Yeah, so there's a couple theories associated with that. One was that there was a cipher code called the Atbash cipher, which involves the Hebrew language, and if you, it's basically, you take the first half of the Hebrew language, and then you take the second half of the Hebrew language and you put it underneath the first half, and you can replace out the top letter for the bottom letter. And when you do that, Baphomet becomes Sophia. And Sophia was actually the goddess of wisdom within the Gnostic tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And she was she was also said to be the mother of Abraxas.
The creator of the Demiurge.
Correct. And Abraxas was said to be an archon under the Demiurge who had, at first, he was working at enslaving people, and then he attained gnosis himself, or divine knowledge, after which he worked to try to liberate and keep people from being enslaved.
Interesting.
Well, one of the Templar seals, actually, which you can find on their old documents, was the figure of Abraxas. So we know, this is part of how we know they were secretly passing on this Gnostic tradition. So
that's interesting. I guess the mainstream story would say that the church is perhaps trumping up these charges in order to take down the Templars and sort of making up these things, such as like these occult traditions and sort of heretical beliefs and spitting on the cross and things like that. And so my understanding, kind of going off the mainstream, is like, oh, this was more or less trumped up or fake. But then your perspective is because they're taking on this Gnostic tradition.
Yeah.
Perhaps there was, from the church's perspective, some heretical beliefs that were valid.
Yeah, to the church it was heretical. And they may have exaggerated things a bit. Like, for example, the Templars, and in that Gnostic tradition, they wouldn't have venerated the cross as a symbol because from a Gnostic perspective, the cross was just a symbol for matter, and it was about the whole crucifixion was symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even believe it was real.
But would they have desecrated the cross? Would that have been in there?
They wouldn't necessarily desecrated it. One theory is if they had been captured by Islamic forces, they would have been forced to disavow the cross, which may have involved stomping on it or spitting on it. And so the Templars, in order to train people for being captured, potentially by the enemy, may have made them do this, understanding that, look, the cross isn't really, we're not really worshiping the cross anyways. It's just a symbol. And we don't even believe that that Jesus really died on the cross. It was a metaphor, or an initiation rite, which was done in the ancient world and not unlike the initiation rites that the Templars themselves were doing.
I see.
So it was when the Roman Church got a hold of that, they said, "Oh, look, they're denying Jesus," which just wasn't the case. They just viewed Jesus as a great exemplar, as opposed to as just the Savior.
I see.
Know what I mean?
What would you say the Templars believed about the crucifixion? Do you think that they believed that Jesus never died?
Yeah. Well, they believe he died eventually, but they don't believe he died on the cross. In fact, the Greek word that's usually translated as resurrection is anastasis. And anastasis is the opposite of stasis. So stasis means to sleep. Anastasis means to wake up. And so the Templars interpreted that as he was waking up to gnosis, to divine knowledge, and that he didn't really die and then was raised like a zombie. They do believe that Jesus taught that we don't really die, that we either reincarnate or we continue to live on into in the pleroma, in a higher state and that he came here to show that we don't really die.
I see.
But they also believe that the symbolism of the crucifixion can be found pre-Jesus. I mean, it was the whole idea of dying and waking up can be found in the Osirian myths, the old rites of Osiris in Egypt. They are found in Mithraic rites. They are found in, there were like 16 different messiahs prior to Jesus that had all died and had come back. And the Templars had been exposed to this, and they interpreted it all as a metaphor. For that matter, in Hebrew itself, the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Hebrew has 22 letters. The last letter of the Hebrew alphabet is the letter Tav, and Tav means cross, and it's composed of 3 of the Hebrew letter Vav, and Vav means nail. So at the end of the Hebrew alphabet, you literally have a cross and 3 nails. And that in Hebrew has been around, and that symbolism has been around for long before Jesus was ever around.
Right.
So these were things that pointed to, and for that matter, Vav, the Hebrew letter Vav, has a number value of 6. So if Jesus was crucified with 3 nails, or 3 Vav, the Hebrew letter Vav, and Vav has a number value of 6, he was crucified with 666, which in the ancient number canon was the number of transformation. It had nothing to do with the devil. It's why Solomon received 666 talents of gold a year in exchange for bread. In Hebrew, if you replaced every letter for its number value, let there be light in Hebrew adds up to 666. So again, these were metaphors. It was they alluded to things. I mean, even Jesus's name himself in Greek, every letter corresponds to a number. In Greek, Jesus adds up to 888, which was the number of Gnosis, of the what was known as the Agawad, the 8th sphere above the 7 chakra, or the 7 seals. So these were all metaphors, and the Templars had learned to read the Bible, the New Testament in particular, according to these metaphors.
It's like Greek gematria.
Greek gematria, yeah, and Hebrew gematria. That's what these numbers are. They allude to sacred geometry ideas, and they allude to, but more importantly, they allude to our own personal consciousness transformation.
I see.
And so they interpret them that way, and so the crucifixion and awakening of Jesus to the Templars just had to do with his symbolic death to his old material self and his awakening to his true spiritual potential, or to gnosis.
I see.
Yeah, and as such, the Templars also saw the Roman Church somewhat as a control mechanism, as a tool of what was known as the demiurge, which was a prison guard for this planet that kept people enslaved here until they had attained gnosis, or until they had proven that they, were no longer bound strictly by materialism.
Right. So these charges get brought to the Knights Templar, and ultimately they're sentenced to death.
Correct, yeah. So Jacques de Molay then is sentenced to be burnt to death. Well, burnt at the stake, along with several other Templars. Now, to the Roman Church at this point, this is the end of the Templar Order, because they reason that they helped make the Templar Order. They had originally given the Templar Order its rule. They had provided funding for the Templar Order. The Templar Order was answering to the Pope for the most part. And so they reasoned that being a Roman Catholic order, this was the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now the Templars, their rationale was, no, we existed before we received Roman Catholic mandate, and they continued to exist just underground at that point. So at this point, after Jacques de Molay was burnt at the stake, the official narrative by the Roman Church, which became the official narrative of the public, was that was the end of the Templar Order. Now, the Templars, on the other hand, they went underground, and they continue to exist in a number of places. Certainly, they existed somewhat underground in Italy and in France, but they had boats that had left, again, La Rochelle the night before the roundup in 1307, and they had gone to places like Portugal, where the Templars had already started a new Templar state. They helped found Portugal, which was really got its name, instead of Port of the Gauls, it really got its name from Port of the Grail. And they had helped set up Portugal, so they had freedom there. The King of Portugal just had them change their name in order to comply with the Pope. So he could say that the Knights of Christ of the Temple of Solomon no longer existed, and now they were just known as the Knights of Christ.
And the symbol of Portugal to this day is the Red Cross.
Correct, yeah, exactly. And, part of the reason why Portugal owns the Azores, for example, is because the Azores was one of the places that the Templars believed Atlantis had been. Mm-hmm. So it's part of the reason why that got acquired by Portugal. The Templars also fled up into Scotland. At the time, Robert the Bruce was fighting England. He had already been excommunicated by the Roman Church, and so he had no problem taking in other excommunicated Templars, especially because they were known for their fighting and their during their time in the Holy Land. So he was happy to take them in. They, according to tradition, they helped fight the Scottish War of Independence against the British. The story is that the Scots were fighting the English. They were at a key point in the battle. All of a sudden, over the hill came Templars, and the English immediately recognized them. They turned and fled, and this is what led to the Scots winning their independence. The Templars had always believed in trying to set up a free Templar state in which people had freedoms. The earliest document pointing to this was in Parzival, actually, Wolfram von Eschenbach's Parzival, where it says, if any Templar becomes ruler of a foreign people, let him ensure that they are given their God-given rights. Well, this was the first time in history that anyone had ever heard of God-given rights. I mean, prior to this, it was believed that your rights either came from the king or from the monarch, or from the monarch or from the Pope. Mm-hmm. So this idea that people are born with God-given rights was a Templar ideal that they strive for, and they were trying to create within Europe. Mm-hmm. And so the Scottish War of Independence was an expression of this. Prior to this, the Templars had been involved in helping to instate the Magna Carta.
Right, William Marshall.
Right, with William Marshall in England, and to give people rights, outside of the king and outside of the Pope. And the Templars largely lived this way, already having these rights. They wanted to bring it to the people. The Templars had also been secretly traveling over to the New World of the Americas at the time. They had been trading silver with the Mayans and with other tribes.
And what year would this have been?
As early as 1200. In fact, by 1300, they had mapped all of North America and had traveled as far south as Panama.
And how do we know this?
Well, there are Templar records pointing to it. There are Templar landmarks all throughout North America pointing to this. One of the landmarks is the Kensington runestone that Scott Walter talks about, which was placed right in the center of North America as a land claim for the Templars.
The Kensington runestone.
Yeah, it's a runestone. It's a tablet that's written in runes that for a long time people thought might be like a Viking artifact. Scott Walter went and improved that it was actually a Templar artifact that was written in runes, and it was coded in many ways.
This year.
Yeah, that's it. And it was for a long time they thought it was a forgery. It's since been proved to be legit. But this was a land claim for North America by the Templars.
And where was this found?
Minnesota.
Wow.
Yeah, Kensington, Minnesota.
And what is the official dating on this?
Well, it's from the official date now, thanks to Scott, is it was made sometime around 1360. So it would be right after the Templars were suppressed, but while they were underground, and they were still over here in the Americas doing work and meeting with the tribes. Tribes like the Mi'kmaq tribe, by the way, which is in Nova Scotia. One of the hallmarks of the connection between the Templars and the Mi'kmaq tribe is the Mi'kmaq have a flag that they use, and the flag is actually identical to the old Templar battle flag.
The Mi'kmaq tribe flag?
Yeah, Mi'kmaq tribe, yeah. So that's one of the tribes that they were meeting with. There's also figurines, like there's a carved figure. It's called the Baffin Island figurine, and it's a wooden figure that's from about 1200 that was carved by native tribes, but it's a figurine of a Knight Templar. Even has a cross on the chest, and is wearing a traditional chainmail coif, and you can find it at the museum in Baffin Island, for example.
Baffin Island?
Yeah.
Where's that?
And it dates, it's up in Nova Scotia region. There it is.
Wow.
So there's a Templar, that was carved by the native tribes.
In 1200?
Yeah, 1200 that's what it's carbon dated to.
You can see the cross there on the chest.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. He's wearing a traditional Templar tunic, and
wow.
Yeah, so the natives, they were encountering Templars, and they were working with them.
And can you find the Mi'kmaq flag? I mean, that's fascinating.
Oh, yeah, you could be able to find that. You type in Mi'kmaq, I think it's spelled like Miqmah.
Mm-hmm. And they're in Nova Scotia as well?
Nova Scotia, yeah. Mi'kmaq flag and Templar, I'm sure you'll be able to find the two.
Now, what years?
Yeah, there we go. That's it right there. so there's the Mi'kmaq flag, which was the old Templar battle flag.
Right.
So,
and the idea is that in what year were they using this flag roughly?
Well, the Mi'kmaq say that goes all the way, back to that same time period.
1200, 1300?
Yeah, and they have their own myths of meeting with the Templars at that time.
And you have this iconic red cross.
Right.
Which it seems obviously Christian. But
right.
The conventional story here is that Christopher Columbus wouldn't have come to America until late 1400s.
Late 1400s, yeah. So, and these are things that go back, much earlier, and especially with that star and the moon, those are Those are traditional Templar symbols. You'll find that on old landmarkers that the Templars were putting all over Europe.
So strange.
Yeah, well, it's because the Templars were over here. They were also meeting with the Mayans, declared down in Yucatan. To this day, the Mayans will still put an equal armed cross on their altars, specifically because of their connection and meeting with the Templars. I lead tours down to the Yucatan and meet with the Mayans all the time, and according to traditional Mayan history and Templar history, the Templars were trying to find the remnants of Atlantis. They had encountered in Egypt references to the Egyptians meeting with the Mayans, the ancient Egyptians, because the Egyptians were trying to find their homeland of Utlant, which was said to be an island in the Atlantic, and they were trying to find the remnants of the people who had survived a cataclysm previously. And they have recorded on certain temple walls their meetings with Mayans. They even had a Queen Maya who had been involved in Egypt for a while. Some people believe Nefertiti may have been a Mayan princess that had been brought over into Egypt. And in the Valley of the Queens to this day, there's a Queen Maya tomb, and it has Mayan art in it. On Elephantine Island in Egypt, there's a temple. It's closed to the public, but it has images of Egyptians meeting with Mayans with their traditional headdresses. So the Templars came across all. You're not going to find that online.
You can't find that one.
But I could get you a picture of it.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
But so the Templars came across all this. They knew there was probably land on the other side of the Atlantic, and they found their way there through a number of sources. But they met with the Mi'kmaq, and they made their way down met with the Mayans. The Templars had certain initiation ceremonies that they had inherited, in which they were given, they would go through a symbolic death and raising ceremony, which they believed was the same thing Jesus went through, and the same thing. In fact, they believed that the story of Lazarus was such an initiation ceremony, that Jesus wasn't actually raising Lazarus from the dead, that Lazarus represented the god Osiris symbolically. In fact, in Hebrew, Lazarus is El Asur. Well, El in Hebrew means God, and Asur was the ancient Egyptian name for the god Osiris. Osiris is the Greek name for it, but the original Egyptian name for this god is Asur. So El Asur literally means the god Osiris.
Interesting.
So Jesus was symbolically raising the god Osiris. He was reenacting this initiation ceremony that the pharaohs went through as they represented the god Osiris. And Osiris himself was a metaphor for Utlant, or Atlantis, according to the Egyptian mythology. Now, the Mayans were performing this same initiation rite. And in fact, they say they came from a homeland, an island that sunk. They went by the name of Atlan. So you had the Egyptians talking about Utlant, Yeah, the Mayans talk about Atlant. They were the same thing. They were both talking about Atlantis, which Plato referred to as Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
And the Templars, they found all this. They knew, they believed this was the land of Noah prior to the flood.
Which land?
Atlantis.
Oh, I see.
Was the territory of Noah prior to the flood. And so when the Egyptians talked about Utlant and the Mayans talked about Atlant and Plato, which the Templars had come across the writings of Plato through, there were Islamic translators at the time and there were Ethiopian Coptic Christians that were preserving documents, and there were Druze groups that were preserving documents, particularly Hermetic documents. But the Templars came across all of this, and they learned of Plato's Atlantis, and they learned of the Egyptian Utlant, and they learned, so when they came across the Mayans, one of the things they exchanged was certain hand grips that they had received during their initiation ceremonies. And these were recognized by the Mayans, just like they were recognized by the Mi'kmaq and other tribes in North America. And that the Mayans had this same initiation ceremony where the candidate would be symbolically killed and then brought back from the dead. Well, this was something the Templars were performing, what they had learned of from the Druze and other groups that went all the way back to ancient Egypt. And so they got along fine with the Mayans.
Hey guys, we're going to take a break really quick because I want to talk to you about the thing in your back pocket that's probably a disaster. Yeah, this episode is brought to you by Extra and the new Wallet Pro. I switched to this and I'm not going back. This is genuinely the wallet that I use every day. It is next-gen Italian leather and it's got this metal ejector trigger, so you hit the button with your thumb and all your cards instantly fan out. One hand, instant, no more digging around at the counter. And yeah, you're not going to be holding up the line next time you're trying to cash out. And here's what gets me. It's the slimmest leather wallet that Extra has ever made, but it actually holds more. Yeah, up to 14 cards plus your cash, and it sits flat in your pocket, no plastic anywhere. It is all recycled aluminum and real leather, and it comes with a lifetime warranty. So yeah, this is basically the last wallet that you will ever buy. And here's the kicker. It is Extra's 10th anniversary sale right now. So you're going to get up to 40% off through August 17th. You go to partner.extra.com/campgagnon. It's linked in the description too, and use the code GAGNON20 to get an extra 20% off on top of that. Yes, it comes with Extra's 100-day money-back guarantee, so there is literally zero risk. Upgrade that beat-up wallet that you have that's falling apart. Get this wallet that is perfect Italian leather. It smells great. It has no plastic, and it holds everything you need and more. You will thank me later. Now let's get back to the show. Hey guys, we're going to take a break real quick because this episode is sponsored by Brunt Workwear. I got the Marin boot right here, and what immediately stood out to me about this is the quality. They feel substantial, they are genuinely comfortable, and just being honest, they are a really good looking boot. I like them, I wear them. This is even the pair that I wear. The pair that I wear is at my house, and they're absolutely dirty right now. But this gear is made for people working demanding jobs in actual trades. But you don't have to work on a job site to recognize when something is built really well. And right now, Brunt is giving one lucky winner $50,000 in the Brunt Potty of Gold sweepstakes. Yes, that is the actual name. And yes, it is a lot of cash. If I won 50 grand, I would go towards probably upgrading the campsite. I would get some new cameras. I would send Christos back to Greece probably. And what's awesome is that entering is completely free. Just create a Brunt account or log in with your existing account to start earning entries. And you can earn additional entries by following Brunt on social media, signing up for their emails and their texts, or even picking up some new gear. So you can also earn extra entries for every dollar you spend through September 18th, 2026. And here's what you do. You go to bruntworkwear.com/camp. Use the code CAMP and you will get $10 off and enter the Brunt Potty of Gold sweepstakes for your chance to win $50,000. Oh, and here's another thing that I love about Brunt is that they actually let you wear your boots before you decide if you want to keep them. And if the boots aren't right for you, you can return them for a full refund. It's a 100% risk-free trial. There is no reason not to do it. It was started by this guy, Eric Girard. He literally grew up blue collar, and he kept hearing the same complaints like, hey, all the major brands aren't making boots for actual work. And one more time, you're going to get $10 off at Brunt when you use the code CAMP at checkout. So head to bruntworkwear.com/camp, use the code CAMP, and enter the sweepstakes for a chance to win $50,000. No purchase is necessary. The sweepstakes ends September 18th, 2026, and official rules apply. Go check out Brunt. Now let's get back to the show. Was their description of this Atlantis type place the same?
Yeah. That it was a very advanced civilization where people could do things that they can't do anymore. They looked to several different texts at the time. There was another book in Britain called The Prophecies of Merlin that had been published by Geoffrey of Monmouth, which he said came from earlier Celtic documents, that talked about all kinds of technologies like crystals that you could hold in your hand that would allow you to talk with people on the other side of the ocean, and flying devices and devices that could go underwater, allow you to go underwater. And, these were all alluded to. They believed that these came from a previous civilization. They described things that you could look at that would allow you to see people on other parts of the world, Anyhow, it was believed that these were a technology that had existed in the past, that seemed as magic at the time, but was believed to be technologies. And as the Templars, one of the things they discovered in Egypt in particular were these arks, these boxes that what they were is these arks were static capacitors. They would build up static from their environment over a period of days or over a month, and then would store that static, and then would start to discharge it through the top where the winged figures were. And that seemed like magic. You couldn't touch it without being electrocuted, right? Which could kill you. So,
and these arks, according to the biblical account, are made of acacia wood and gold.
Right, alternating layers, correct. Yeah, and they had within the manna. And this manna was according to the Templar tradition, was a substance that was made alchemically. So this was one of the other things that the Templars came across, was the study of alchemy. And alchemy was believed to be the science of the gods, or the science of God. And it was believed to be a science that had come from that pre-civilization of Atlantis. It wasn't just about transmuting base metals into gold. It was about taking substances like gold and transmuting them into this manna substance, which was a white powder that was said to, not only when it was put in the arks, it was superconductive, so it would cause that power to build up even more. But it was also a medicine, and that when you ingested it, it helped raise consciousness and cure the body of illnesses. And it was believed that when Moses burned the golden calf into a powder and sprinkled it on the water and fed it to the wandering Hebrews, that's what this was. This was the manna. And that when he wandered the desert, and he would, in fact, it was even believed that when Moses witnessed God as a burning bush, when you burn down certain plants in that region, particularly acacia and tamarisk, you get ashes, and out of those ashes you can extract, well, out of acacia you can extract DMT, which is it's called the spirit molecule. It creates hallucinogenic properties. But you could also extract out of those ashes this manna, this substance that is it's platinum based, but it's in a monoatomic state, so it doesn't bind with anything, and it doesn't react to anything. And so this is why it got the name manna, which manna in Hebrew actually just means, what is it?
Right.
And so if you have a substance that if you try to burn it, it doesn't produce a color, and you try to subject it to other chemicals and it doesn't react, then what is it? How do you know what it is? Right?
My understanding from like high school Bible studies that this manna would come down from heaven, and it fed all the people, and it really was just kind of like a panacea in a way, and that the wandering Israelites or the Hebrews at the time relied on it for sustenance, and it was, of course, within the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, so
it's almost like a bread is kind of the way it was put in my mind.
Exactly, because it was cooked into bread, but it was called manna from heaven because there's this stage where you take gold, like if you take 24 karat gold, you have to liquefy it first of all by turning it into a gold chloride, which is just done by mixing gold with certain acids, right, that you can derive from plants in the region. If there's a plant that grows in the region of the Holy Land, that's scientific name is dictypetalum, and it breaks down things, but you could also extract this acid out of other things. But you created what was known as a vitriolic acid, and from that vitriolic acid, it eats gold and turns it into a gold chloride. From that gold chloride, alchemically, you can do a certain process to it in which the gold appears to disappear. It's like gone. It's like it looks like it's completely been dissolved and there's nothing left. What's really happened is the gold has entered into a higher dimensional state. And then from that higher dimension, you can bring it back. And when you bring it back, it comes back in this monoatomic state, as this white powder. And so it appears like you've offered gold up into heaven, and that heaven has given it to you back as manna.
I see.
So that's why it was manna from heaven. What is it from heaven? It's this new substance that has come back from the higher dimensional state from heaven. And
from the Templar tradition, it is just this sort of powderized gold, I guess.
It is. That's correct. And it's because each grain of it is self-contained, it's monoatomic, the two electrons in the outer valence ring enter into what's known as a Cooper pair. This is the modern explanation of what's going on. They enter into what's called a high spin state, where the outer valence ring becomes completely captured by the nucleus, and it doesn't bind anymore. Like it no longer forms compounds. It becomes contained within itself, and because it's in this high spin state, it refracts light, so it appears white as a white powder. And this powder is superconductive. So if you put that superconductive substance in a capacitor, electrostatic capacitor like an arc, it produces tremendous electricity at that point. Also, if you ingest it, it heals the body, much like chemotherapy, which is done with heavy metals, only because it's in this monoatomic state, it doesn't poison the body like heavy metals do. So it heals the body, and it produces, it's superconductive, so it produces a tremendous amount of electricity when put in the static capacitor.
So they bake it into a bread and then they eat it.
Correct. And you find this, and they learned of this also not only from the Bible, but it's depicted all over the temple walls of Egypt. If you go to Egypt, all of the temples depict this. They all depict arks, because every temple at one point in time had an ark in its sanctum sanctorum. These arks are always depicted on boats, because these arks were brought over on boats from Atlantis, or from Utlant, as the Egyptians referred to it as. Just like the Egyptians also depict their kneaders, or their gods, as having come over on these boats from Utlant. They also believed that the gods, or the people who established Egypt, not only did they come from this island of Utlant, but originally it was believed that these gods had come from Orion, the Orion Nebula. And so the sanctum sanctorums of all the Egyptian temples, they all have the word, if you look at the hieroglyphs on the doors, they have the word Saba on them, which just means Stargate. So they talk about how the gods came from Orion through these Stargates here to Earth. And that, and by the way, this is Saba. This word Saba is where the word Sheba comes from. So when King Solomon would go visit the Queen of Sheba in Ethiopia, Sheba was the same word as Saba in Egyptian, which just meant Stargate. So she was the queen of the Stargate. According to Ethiopian texts like the Kebra Nagast, it talks about King Solomon's flying ship, where he would visit the Queen of Sheba and then go back to Jerusalem. He was visiting the Queen of the Stargate in his flying ship.
Right. Now, what is the mainstream understanding of that story? Is that this is a symbol for...
Mainstream story is that Sheba was just her name, and that she was just one of the lovers of King Solomon, and that he would go and visit her,
right?
You know, and at best, or at a minimum, I should say, or at best, King Solomon was married to the Queen of Sheba, and he would just go visit her.
Now, the Templar tradition, does it believe that there was a literal ship here, or was this some type of metaphorical?
No, it believes that there was a literal ship, and that the Egyptian walls talk about the founders of Egypt having come over in these ships from Atlantis, and that originally these came from Orion. And this is why the god Osiris was depicted. It was always associated with Orion.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, in the stories of Osiris, his brother Set tricks him, cuts him up into a bunch of pieces and throws him into the Nile. And Isis then, who's Osiris's sister wife, she recollects his pieces and puts them back together again, and then raises him from the dead. And to the Templars and to the Egyptians, this was a metaphor of many things. One, it was a metaphor for the alchemical process of how you need to chop up an herb, and you digest it in water, and then you distill it, and then you collect the oils, and then and the salts, and you re-put them back together again to bring it back to life in a new form. So on the one hand, it was a metaphor for that, but on the other hand, it was also a metaphor for Atlantis itself, which was broken up into pieces. And the goal of civilization is to recollect those pieces to create the new Atlantis, which is what the Templars were trying to do. It's what the Egyptians were trying to do before them. And so that's why they were sailing out, trying to find the old colonies, shall we say, of Atlantis, bring them back together again.
I see. Now, the Manna, or the Manna, rather.
Hang on real quick. It's an important point. This is also the reason why the Pharaoh in ancient Egypt was always depicted with this triangular apron, because he was trying to look like the constellation of Orion. His body, between his body and the triangular apron, he was trying to look like the star pattern of the constellation of Orion, which was believed everything originally came from. And this is also why on the temple walls you'll see the pharaohs always standing next to these arks, particularly in the Sanctum Sanctorum to the Holy of Holies within all the temples of Egypt. They're always standing next to one of these arks. They're offering the gods, usually Osiris, but sometimes other gods, like if the god of the temple, whatever that temple was dedicated to. You'll see the pharaoh offering a cone-shaped bread, which is the manna, to the god while he's standing next to one of the arks, and he's holding a rod, and these rods were grounding rods. So if you put the rod in the ground and you dropped it against the ark, it would discharge the electricity, so then you could touch the ark. But otherwise, you couldn't touch the ark because it was issuing electricity, and it would shock you to death. And this is and these temples were built. They were also built with these what are called butterfly clamps, connecting stones around the perimeter of the temples. And what these were is they would harness the electricity from the ark that was within the temple, and it would cause the whole temple to just be full of static. So anybody who was going into worship, if they touched any of the statues or anything, it would shock them. which seemed like magic, to the early Egyptians.
Are we able to see any of the hieroglyphs of the pharaohs near the Arks?
Oh, yeah. They're all over. Yeah, all over. And I can send you pictures of them. But like every temple in Egypt has them. Every temple had an ark in their sanctum sanctorum. And it's depicted on the temple walls. But it's one of these things that the Templars understood because they found some of these arks and they brought them back with them. In fact, there's even at, I'll get you a picture of this, but at, for example, the Temple of Seti I at Abydos, it's where the Templars found the first ark. And there's a room that's closed to the public right now called the Seti room. But in that room, on the walls, you'll see the pharaoh with an ark offering it to the gods, and you'll see an ark on a boat, and you'll also see Templar graffiti from the 1200s where they took their red crosses and they marked it in 3 places around the ark on the wall, saying, hey, this is where we found one of the arks. And they did that everywhere they went in Egypt. So there's Templar graffiti at all the major temples, and even at Hatshepsut's funerary temple, right before you go into the Sanctum Sanctorum, or the Holy of Holies of Hatshepsut's funerary temple, which is listed as a Stargate. There's also right there red crosses that were painted by the Templars, because the Templars had set up their main commandery building at the Temple of Isis at Philae, and there's Templar crosses all carved into the into the Temple of Isis at Philae by the Templars while they were there. But also at Dendera, the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, there's a bunch of Templar graffiti too, so.
Interesting. Now, do you believe that the pyramids at Giza also housed these arks?
Yes. So one of the beliefs is that it just so happens that the so-called sarcophagus that's found in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, the inner dimensions of that sarcophagus are the same as the outer dimensions as the Ark of the Covenant. So the reason is, if you were to put one of these arks, of which the Ark of the Covenant that's from the Bible is one, if you were to put one of these in that sarcophagus of the Great Pyramid with the manna in it, this monoatomic superconductive substance, the pyramid itself is already a giant static generator. In fact, the granite, they specifically put this incredible, some of as much as 70-ton granite that they had quarried from Aswan, which was hundreds of miles away. They managed to get it over a mountain range down the Nile and then somehow get it up into the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. This granite is piezoelectric, which means when you put pressure on it, it produces electricity, right? So you have this granite, you have all this pressure of limestone and other stone that the Great Pyramid is made of acting on it. It's already going to produce an electrical charge. To this day, even without an ark, if you stand on top of the Great Pyramid with a bottle, like a glass bottle, and you put a wet rag on it, sparks will start to shoot off the
No.
The bottle, yeah, it's just from the generation of the electricity of the pyramid itself. Right now, with nothing, no arc in the Great Pyramid, but
Because of the pressure conduction of the granite.
correct. So and the static buildup from the desert itself. So
Is there a video of that? I mean,
no, but there's been descriptions of it going back into the 1800s of that happening. So,
wow.
So if you put an ark then in that king's chamber with the Manna in it, it's going to produce a tremendous amount of electricity.
And what would have been the utility at that time for the pharaohs?
So one theory is that the pyramid's a lot older than Khufu, and that it had actually existed prior to Khufu.
Because most of the dating on the pyramids is what, like 2500 BC or something to that effect? It's Old Kingdom.
Right, Old Kingdom. But one of the problems with that, there are actually ostrich eggs in the Cairo Museum that had been made by Bedouin cultures prior to Khufu, that actually show the Nile and the three pyramids on it, which seem to suggest that the pyramids were there long before Khufu.
Right. Those ostrich eggs date to what time roughly?
I think they date as early as 5000 BC.
Wow. So far before the pyramids were set
long before, right. So that kind of suggests that the pyramids are older. There are other elements to the pyramids as well that most people don't factor in. One has to do with there's a foundational platform that the pyramids rest on. If you go to Giza, you see everyone looks at the pyramids. They don't look down. And if you look down, they'll see that there's a platform that these pyramids rest on, and it's designed to be earthquake proof, and it's cyclopean architecture where there are stones that have as many as like 8 different sides to them, and they're all fit like jigsaw pieces all throughout the Giza plateau, and it's designed to be earthquake proof. The other place we find this type of thing is in some of the earliest temples of Egypt. They're built with this same, like the Sphinx temple, which is right next to the Sphinx, is built with this same type of architecture. The other place we find this is over in the Americas, quite frankly, in Peru, at places like Cusco in Peru. Same thing, built with these giant megalithic stones that are all fitted like jigsaw puzzles to be earthquake proof. And it would have there are millions of these stones on the Giza plateau. So everyone's looking at the pyramids, and the pyramids are a marvel, don't get me wrong, but just that platform to create that, leveling out the desert and creating that platform
is as much of a
marvel as the pyramids themselves. Wow. And nobody ever looks at those. Right. But it suggests a much bigger project than what Egyptologists are acknowledging. And so it may be that these structures were originally created by the Atlanteans. There are other things, too, that point to this. One, for example, is there's the shafts in the Great Pyramid, which go, from the Queen's Chamber and the King's Chamber all the way to the outside of the pyramids, and just how they arranged all the stones to make that happen is pretty incredible itself. But in these shafts, in particular, there's one out of the Queen's Chamber that there was a scientist by the name of Gattenbrink who about 20 years ago had sent robots up these shafts, and he found doors and in the shafts, and he drilled through one of the doors, and he put a fiber optic camera through the hole, and he saw another door up there, and that was made available to the public. In fact, I think he was even televised on NBC or something.
It was
like
a big night or a nightly special.
Correct.
I remember
correct.
this.
Yeah. But what wasn't televised was he then took another fiber optic camera, put it through the hole, and looked at the back of the door. And in the back of the door, he found copper hinges, and then there was writing. But the writing's not Egyptian. Well, that's a problem, because Egyptians supposedly built this pyramid, and yet the writing's not Egyptian.
What is the writing?
We don't know. We don't know what it is. It implies that some other culture, though, was involved in creating this pyramid.
Is it possible another culture came later and then put these hinges in or these doors?
No, how would they get them in there?
I mean, you get a little guy to crawl up there or something.
No, the shafts are maybe 10 inches by 10 inches.
So the doors were put in at the creation of them.
Correct.
I see.
Yeah, so we know the doors were put in when the pyramid was built, and we know that on the doors is writing that's not Egyptian.
Interesting. And no one knows what it is to this day?
No one knows what it is.
Are there images of the writing?
There are. You can find them. You can find them online.
Mm-hmm.
But the closest we've encountered to this writing is there's a culture known as the Vinca that is found in Northern Europe. But and some of the symbols look similar to the Vinca culture, which we haven't been able to translate the Vinca either, but it's some of the oldest writing on Earth.
Interesting. Fellas, this episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Look, life is about preparation. You got to prepare for a camping trip, for your job, for a podcast, and you got to prepare for all of the things happening in your life. And, sometimes when the vibe is right, everyone's, being an adult, you're on the same page. Sometimes people forget to prepare for the bedroom, and that's why you need Blue Chew Gold. Blue Chew Gold is going to take you to the next level in the bedroom. It combines 4 ingredients into one powerful solution. 2 to support you physically, 2 to support arousal and desire in the brain, and it works in just as fast as 15 minutes and will make you feel more confident with bedroom matters amongst only married relationships. That's how I promote it, okay? I think it only should be within the sanctity of marriage, trying to create children, okay? I'm a Catholic. That's what I believe. Now, Blue Chew is great because if you go to bluechew.com, not only are you going to get the #1 brand for better bedroom experiences, you're also going to get a little deal. Right now, if you buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold, you're going to get the 3rd month free with the promo code GAGNON. That's GAGNON. You're also going to get an additional 10% off plus free overnight shipping on your very first order when you visit bluechew.com. Use the promo code GAGNON, and you can check out more details and important safety information. Thanks so much, Blue Chew. Let's get back to the show. Hey guys, we're going to take a break really quick because I got to tell you something. If you know me, you know I'm obsessed with finding ways to cheat biology without accidentally ruining my biology. And for a long time, I associated putting a pouch in with being focused and energized and like ready to attack the day. But the thing is, nicotine is a vasoconstrictor, which means it literally narrows your blood vessels and restricts oxygen delivery to your muscles. So I'm taking something because I think it's helping me when I'm working out and it's helping me lock in. Meanwhile, my blood vessels are essentially closing the gates while my muscles are begging for supplies. So you're trying to get this awesome pump, but your body's like, I'm just going to elevate your blood pressure and give you some anxiety. And that's why I switched to Ultra pouches. I love Ultra. Ultra is a 100% nicotine-free pouch with 0 nicotine and 0 caffeine. It gives me that like pouch ritual that I like, and also a really smooth energy and just a really locked in focus. And it's so much better when I'm working out. It makes me feel great at the gym. They use nootropics and adaptogens, and I usually feel it start within like a few minutes. And I throw one in before I go to the gym, before a podcast. I have one in right now, and it sharpens me up without making me feel like I'm like anxious or like I'm jittery. And when I'm fasting or trying to clean up my diet, it really helps quiet just the food noise and the cravings that I have. It's amazing. You get all the focus, you get all the energy, you still get the pouch experience, but again, there's 0 nicotine and 0 caffeine, so I'm not dealing with the same wired feeling or like the crash that I get from caffeine. My favorite flavor is blue raspberry. I got the watermelon right here because I already finished the blue raspberry. Ultra is the ultimate guilt-free pouch, delivering instant focus and mental clarity without nicotine and caffeine. And I've great news. If you are listening to this program right now, when you use the code CAMP, you will get 15% off when you go to takeultra.com. That is takeultra.com. Use the code CAMP for 15% off. And after you purchase, they're going to ask where you heard about them. Tell them that Mark and Christos from the campsite sent you. Now let's get back to the show.
So,
and is it true that some of these chambers don't go to the outside, or some of the shafts? Like some do, but some don't?
Well, yeah, I mean, they go in the direction. We don't know if they fully go to the outside because we haven't been able to get something to go all the way up through it. But they seem to point to those directions. So
now, if this is somehow conducting electricity, what is the benefit of these shafts, or like how does the layout of this
the shafts
contribute?
I don't think it contributes to, so one of the theories, this is going to get really wild, but bear with me. One of the theories is that when these arcs were turned on and the Pharaoh was in there, they acted as Stargates. They acted as a way to not necessarily transport physically, but transport the consciousness of the Pharaoh to these star systems. And these shafts happen to point to places like Orion, Sirius, which was associated with the goddess Isis. And it tracks that. They tend to lock on to these areas. And then the pyramids themselves, the 3 pyramids, seem to mimic the 3 stars of Orion's belt. So again, it's all pointing to Orion. But one of the shafts is also pointing to Sirius, which was Isis, associated with the goddess Isis in antiquity. And by the way, Isis means seat or throne. So even Osiris or Osar gets his name from Isis. The Os part of Osar comes from Isis, meaning throne. And that's where Osiris gets his power from, is from the throne, from Isis. And then the Sar part was like his actual name, you know.
I see.
Yeah, so there was a relationship there where the seat of power was tied to Isis, and that was connected with Sirius, and then Osar or Osiris himself was connected with Orion.
I see.
And there was a relationship there between Sirius and Orion.
Do all of these ancient cultures, do they have a reverence for Orion as a constellation?
Yeah, either Orion or the Pleiades. Most of them are, for example, the 3 pyramids at Teotihuacan in Mexico just outside of Mexico City. They're aligned with Orion's belt as well. And they have the same mathematical relationships to the pyramids in Egypt. There's also 3 pyramids at Xi'an in China, and they're also aligned with Orion's belt. And if you were to take those 3, if you were to lay out a flat map of the world with Teotihuacan, Giza, and Xi'an, they are also in the shape of Orion's belt.
Right.
So
aren't they all like roughly on like a straight line as well?
Yeah, very close, very closely related to the 30th parallel. Which is the 30th parallel north is actually where we NASA launches its rockets too. It's kind of interesting.
Right.
There seems to be something related to that. But there's other structures around the world like Angkor Wat in Cambodia has associations with Orion's belt. And other places, there are indigenous places in the Southwest associated with the Hopi tribes that are connected with Orion's belt. And then there are places like the Mayan Tulum. All the structures are laid out according to the Pleiades. And in particular the star system of Aldebaran.
And what is that?
It's the bull's eye. It's the eye of the bull. It's the eye of Taurus. That's where we get the bull's eye from in archery, for example. So these star systems are pretty fundamental in the ancient world that is found with these ancient monuments. It's believed that from a Templar perspective, we've also found replicas of Arks at these places, which suggests that at one point in time, these different ancient cultures and these ancient monuments all had an ark, which probably formed like a world grid network of electricity, broadcasted electricity at one point in time, which could have been used for powering things, but it also could have been used in the technology somehow of transporting the human consciousness to these through these stargates to these other star constellations.
So correct me if I'm wrong here, but this theory kind of follows that you have this electroconductive materials that exist in Egypt in the form of these arcs that are then in the form of these massive structures like the pyramids, that the Hebrews are acutely aware of. I mean, they are living in Egypt for, many, decades, centuries perhaps. And then when they leave, they take this technology with them and they create these sort of mobile, hyperconductors for some type of spiritual communication.
Correct. Yeah. In fact, the theory is the way the Templar Order looks at it now is that, so there was the Pharaoh Akhenaten. He existed about 1350 BC. Pharaoh Akhenaten is the first to proclaim monotheism. He says, look, don't worship the gods. The gods are metaphor, but there is one true God, and this is the secret of the pharaohs. And he comes out and he calls the god Aten, and he has the sun as a symbol of the Aten, and or my Aten, which in Egyptian was Atenai, right? So Akhenaten exists for a little while. His queen is Nefertiti, who may have been a Mayan princess. And his daughter, by the way, ends up going up to Scotland. Her name is Scotia. That's what Scotland's named after.
Scotia?
Yeah, Princess Scotia. She was an Egyptian princess. That's what Scotland's named after.
Right. And is that Templar tradition or is that official?
No, that's official.
Really?
Yeah, it's official. So Akhenaten, he exists for a while. He's deposed by the Amun priesthood. They put up with his Aten religion for a little while, but then he gets deposed. He has a brother by the name of Tutmosis, who grows up in the court with Akhenaten, but he's never pharaoh. When Akhenaten gets deposed, Tutmosis takes the Atenist followers and he leads them out of Egypt into Lebanon, or the region of Lebanon initially. Well, Tutmosis is Moses, right? He grew up in the Egyptian court with the pharaoh, but he never became pharaoh himself. He was a high priest in the court. The Atenai becomes Adonai in Hebrew, which means Lord. And he leads them into the region of Lebanon. They become the Canaanites. Egypt already had a close connection with the Phoenicians, which were like the cousins of the Egyptians, and they were seafaring culture. They existed in places like Byblos, which, by the way, gets its word from papyrus. So papyrus in Greek becomes loosely translated into Byblos, which becomes book in Latin. And it's because this is where the early writings of the Egyptians and the Phoenicians were put on papyrus, and they were stored there in Byblos. And that's where Byblos gets its name from. But anyhow, it was a Phoenician area. According to Egyptian myths, Osiris had actually, one of the places where Osiris was resurrected by Isis was actually in Byblos. So Tutmosis, or Moses, takes, and by the way, Moses just means, Tutmosis in Egyptian means drawing forth the wisdom of Thoth, or Tahuti, who was the scribe of the Egyptians. He was said to be master of the word, the inventor of alchemy, the wisdom of the kneaders of the gods. He was the advisor of Osiris. He helped to preside over the resurrection of Osiris, and according to the Egyptian mythology, in Greek, Thoth, or Tahuti, Thoth, is the god Hermes. He was the Roman god Mercury. He was the Sumerian god Enki. But Thoth was the wisdom keeper. So Tutmosis literally meant drawing forth the wisdom of Thoth. Moses in Hebrew means to draw forth, and it's usually represented, they associate it with Moses being drawn forth out of the river and brought into the Pharaoh's court, right? So that's where they say he gets his name from in Hebrew. But if his name was originally Tutmosis, it meant drawing forth the wisdom of Thoth. Anyhow, so they go, Moses, or Tutmosis, brings the Atenist followers into Lebanon. They become the Canaanites of the Bible. And this is why, if you look at Phoenician letters, you could see how they're drawn from the Egyptian hieroglyphic letters, and you can also see how they're connected to the Hebrew letters, because the Hebrew came out of it.
I see.
And so this was really the path of Moses being schooled in Egypt, learning alchemy, his turning his staff into a serpent and back into a staff again. That's the symbol of healing that's found on all of the Egyptian temples. If you look at the doors surrounding the Egyptian temples, they all show a staff with a serpent going up it. And this later became the symbol for Hermes, who had a staff with a serpents going up it. And that later became the symbol for the American Medical Association,
right,
for healing. But it was originally an Egyptian symbol that was adopted by Moses, grafted onto the Bible along with the Arks.
Now, what is the Templar understanding of that story of Moses turning this rod into a serpent and then back again?
It was just a symbol of the spinal column with the kundalini that would go up. The serpents was the kundalini that would go up it. And
did Moses do this literally?
No, it was a metaphor. It was a metaphor. I mean, it was a metaphor of how you transmute your physical body into the spiritual body. And this is why the pharaohs would always have the serpent coming out of their third eye on their crown. Just represented their brow chakra, with the serpent, the kundalini, going up the spinal column to have the third eye open, or what was known as the Nazar in Aramaic. This is really where the word Nazarene comes from. Jesus, the Nazarene. Where it says in the New Testament, if thine eye be single, thy whole body will be filled with light. It's alluding to the third eye. It's alluding to the Nazar, the forehead, which was the sixth chakra, or the sixth seal, according to Revelations. The seven seals alluded to the seven chakra, and the Egyptians were keenly aware of this chakra system. Normally we associate it with the East within Vedic texts, but it's found within the Egyptian as well. And in fact, the Egyptians, they set up the Nile. The Nile was a reflection of the Milky Way, but it was also represented the spinal column. And they built the temples along the Nile to correspond to these chakra, or these seals, which were known as the seven seals in Revelations. And as each one opened, your old perspective of the world died off, and your new perspective opened up. And it was, the hope was you opened the seven seals, which led to the eighth sphere, which was the Agawad, the sphere of Gnosis. And this is really why Jesus, in Greek gematria, adds up to 888, because it's alluding to the eighth sphere, the Agawad, the area of Gnosis. But the other seven seals have to be opened first. So anyhow, part of this process was... So the rod of Moses represented that spinal column, and then the seven places that the serpent would cross the rod, each represented one of these chakra, or these seven seals, or these seven psychic centers
And for the Hebrews, I forget exactly the story, but they're ill, I think, with a plague, and as they look at the rod, they're healed.
Yeah, so that's the brazen serpent in the desert. So the story is as they were wandering the desert, they kept getting bit by snakes, poisonous snakes.
Oh, that's right.
And so Moses erected this thing which healed them of their snake bites. Now, what's interesting is Nikola Tesla interpreted this as a technology. He took the fact that the word serpent in Hebrew, nehesh, and the word copper in Hebrew, which is nahash, were basically the same word. So he interpreted it as, okay, well, what happens if we take copper and coil it like a snake, right? And hook it up to a charge? What happens? Well, he found that the charge gets vastly increased and it produces a discharge. And this was his Tesla coil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it just so happens that if let's say you have a snake bite and you were to touch something like a coil, a Tesla coil, and the shock from it actually separates the proteins in the snake venom, which causes it nullifies the snake venom.
Is that true?
It's true, yeah. So, I mean, like if you're ever out in the middle of nowhere and you get bit by a snake and you hook yourself up to a car battery and shock yourself at the point of the snake venom, the proteins separate in the snake venom and you'll survive. Now, you may give yourself a heart attack, so I'm not recommending it.
If you don't have an antidote
but
nearby.
if you have no other option, yeah, you could do that to this day. And so this is, part of what Tesla reasoned, and he was right in that regard. And so it may be that the brazen serpent that so if Moses had an ark, which we know he did, in fact, that's probably the reason why the Egyptians chased him out of Egypt, is because he stole one of the arks, quite frankly, because the Egyptians had a bunch of these arks. But if Moses took one of them, or Tutmosis, with him, he could have used that charge actually if he set up a little coil with the copper and to allow people to touch it. It could be that's what he used it may have been a technology that may have been used to separate the proteins in the snake venom to heal them. Yeah.
Now, in the Ark, there's not just this manna. There's also the budded staff of Aaron,
right,
as well as the Ten Commandments.
Right. So again, the rod of Aaron would have been a grounding rod, right? So he could have stored the Ten Commandments in the Ark. It would have been safekeeping, because if anyone touched the Ark, they would have been shocked to death unless they had the grounding rod of Aaron, which, again, was these rods just like the Egyptians had, which you just put into the ground, dropped it against the Ark, it would ground the electricity, and then you could open up the Ark itself.
Interesting.
But if you didn't have that grounding rod, the Ark would just build up electricity over several days and you couldn't touch it. And it's why even in the Torah it talks about Uzzah, it talks about that they're transporting the Ark on this ox cart, and the Ark starts to slip off, and Uzzah goes to stabilize it, and God kills him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's probably because he got shocked to death,
Right. And then
why would God kill him for trying to take care of the Ark? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But if the Ark was a capacitor,
mm-hmm.
That built up static electricity on its own, the shock would kill them.
Right. And then the Levites were the ones that were meant to carry it.
Yeah, so the Levites were in charge of the ark. Now, one of the things that happens with this monoatomic gold is if you put the monoatomic gold in a container and you give it a charge, if you have mana in the container, if you have the same container with no mana in it, the container with the mana in it actually weighs less than the container with nothing in it. Same container with nothing in it, which seems to suggest it's about 30% less, which seems to suggest that the mana is causing the container to weigh less, to redistribute its weight into this higher dimension, potentially. And so it would levitate, literally. It could produce levitation. And it may be that the word levitation comes from Levitation, because the Levites were in charge of the ark.
Mm-hmm. The
same mana was found in the ancient world under in Vedic texts. It was referred to as mani. It was said to be Tibetan texts. In fact, this was the stone of enlightenment, as you find in Om Mani Padme Hum, the Tibetan chant. The mani, the precious stone of enlightenment, was this same mana. It was, in the Vedic text, it was also said to power what were known as vimanas, which were flying craft in the ancient Vedic texts.
Mm-hmm.
Vimanas. In the Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki, which were the gods, were said to have what were known as Shimanas, which were flying craft. Again, the word mana is in there, and it comes from Shem. According to the Sumerian cuneiform, it comes from Shem, which is usually interpreted as word or bread sometimes. Shem, Anna, and then the Anna part is where you get Anunnaki from. And Anna also meant of the heavens. So Shemana was something, word from the heavens, or it was sometimes depicted as a craft from the heavens.
Now, have modern scientists not tried to rebuild this ark? I mean...
Oh, yeah. It's been, in fact, I can't remember which university, back in the 80s, there was a university who rebuilt the ark with the dimensions that was specified, and it did start to build up such static electricity, and it was producing so many, large volts that they finally had to shut it down and take it apart because they're afraid it was going to blow up. Speaking of which, there is evidence. There's an island in Egypt known as Elephantine Island, where one of the earliest Jewish temples that ever existed was. And it was also where there's a temple to Tutmosis III, who was Akhenaten's grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
And one of these arks was said to be on the island. And the island looks like a bomb went off on it. There are where the Sanctum Sanctorum would have been, where there's these boxes that held the arks that were made out of granite that are about 70 tons. They're huge. They're made of granite from Aswan. One of these boxes is just completely, knocked over. It looks like it with rubble all around it, and we don't even know how that happened. But yeah, it's a total, there's the temple. That's one of the temples at on Elephantine Island, where you find the remnants. But the whole island looks like it blew up, and they believe that they actually, there's German scientists there now that have been digging there for the last. Oh, there's the box, 70-ton box. Looks like it just got blown over. And we don't know what would have caused that, but it could be that one of these arcs, just kept building up and building up and building up a charge until it exploded and, just blew everything apart on that island. But that's what, in recent times, there was one of the universities created one of these arcs, and they were afraid that's what was going to happen. So they turned it off, and they disassembled it.
Did they use this sort of powdered gold as
no,
well?
they didn't even have the gold. They just built, just the arc itself was enough to build up the static and then build up a big enough of a charge that it was... They were concerned about it. So again, if you put this monoatomic gold, this Manna, inside the ark, which is, again, it's superconductive, this monoatomic substance. So if you were to put one of those inside a static capacitor, yeah, it would have built up a tremendous amount of charge. And
have you ever seen this monoatomic gold?
oh yeah, we know how to make it. I make it. In fact, I have a company called Templar Made, where we make this substance available to the public. We just started making it available to the public recently, but the knowledge of how to make it's been within the Templar Order since, clear back in the 1100s when they first learned of it. They learned of it in the Bible, but then they found it on the temple walls, and then there were groups like the Druze and the Sabians. That's another group. So the Sabians exist in the area of Haran, which was Turkey, near Göbekli Tepe, if you know. So Göbekli Tepe is one of the earliest evidence of ancient civilization, and the Sabians, they exist in that area. By the way, they get the word Sabian from Saba, which again means Stargate, right? So the Sabians, and they go to Egypt each year to measure star constellations in relation to the pyramids, and they know that area of Göbekli Tepe. The Templars associated with them. In fact, there's Templar graffiti at Göbekli Tepe.
Really?
If you go to what's known as the quarries of Göbekli Tepe, which is like 15 minutes away from the actual site, you'll find Templar graffiti. The Templars had to go out of their way to go there. It wasn't on their natural pilgrimage path, shall we say.
Sure.
And they went out of their way to go there because they had learned of this area, and being part of this ancient civilization. So they were already, even though the site was refound in the 1990s, the Templars were exploring it clear back in the 1200s and left their graffiti there at the quarries to prove it. But they were also associating with the Sabians there. And that's where they learned of this process for making the Manna, the monoatomics. The Sabians and the Druze both preserved this process. The Druze was a Gnostic group, still exists. It's a Gnostic group. It exists primarily in Lebanon. But both groups, both the Sabians and the Druze, venerate Hermes as a prophet. And in fact, when the Muslims came across the Sabians, the Sabians are mentioned in the Quran. The Quran says that the people of the book, or the people that are acceptable in God's eye, are the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, and the Sabians. Well, everybody knows who the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims are. Nobody knows who the Sabians are. There are Sabians that exist in Haran, and there are Sabians that exist in Ethiopia. And the Sabians venerated Hermes. So when the Muslims conquered them, they said, look, if you just change it from Hermes to Idris, the prophet Idris, then we'll be fine. We'll get along fine. So the Sabians, they started worshiping Idris instead of Hermes, but it was the same idea, same, believed to be the same person, the same prophet.
Mm-hmm.
What's significant about that, again, is remember Moses was originally Tutmosis, and the Tut part of Tutmosis, or Toth, or Tahuti in Egyptian, is Hermes of the Greeks. So, who is Idris? So that's where the Sabians, they're venerating. It's also worth to point out that some of the earliest scriptures within the New Testament were found in Egypt at Nag Hammadi,
mm-hmm.
which is right next to the Valley of the Kings. And not only did they find chapters of the New Testament that had been removed or not included, but they found some of the earliest versions of the New Testament. But they found them in clay jars along with the writings of Hermes. So in all of these instances, Hermes is a fundamental part. And this is really tied in with Hermetic, what's known as Hermetic philosophy. And of course, Hermes was Thoth was the creator of alchemy. So there were certain traditions that were preserving this alchemical science. And it was believed that this was the science of Atlantis. And it was used to create this monoatomic gold, or this Manna. And they preserved the process for making it. So that's where the Templars learned of it. This same Manna was associated with the Holy Grail in the Grail myths. It was the sacrament that came with the Holy Grail, the bread that came with the Grail, the chalice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, by the way, the word Grail can be found in ancient Sumer as Gra'al. And Gra'al, Gra.al, was the science of alchemy, according to the Sumerian myths.
Mm.
So it's all connected. And but yeah, the process for making this Manna, this monoatomic substance, is known by Templars. I know how to make it.
And you've consumed it before?
Oh yeah, I consume it all the time.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And what is the benefit to you? Is there any type of...
It heals the body of everything pretty much, and it raises consciousness. Sometimes in the past, for example, the Cathars, the original Albigensians who the Templars came out of, they had been preserving aspects of this process as well. They had their communion ceremony was known as the Mani Sola ceremony. And it was, again, it had to do with this Mani. Mani was this alchemical, which was Manna, the substance. And by the way, there was also a Gnostic leader who came out of Egypt, known as Mani, who got his name from the same substance. He formed what was later known as Manichaeanism.
Mm-hmm.
And Manichaeanism spread all the way from Egypt into China. In fact, some people believe that the Ming Dynasty got its name from all the Manichaeans that were in the court at the time of the Chinese emperor. The Ming in Chinese means light, and the Manichaeans referred to themselves as the religion of light. And they were a Gnostic tradition, but their leader was known as Mani. And the Chinese deemed him the Buddha of light, or they also believed he was the reincarnation of Lao Tzu, who was the founder of Taoism. So all these things are kind of connected.
Right.
And
would you say that Lucifer, being the bringer of light, is
bringer
connected?
of light? Yeah, sure, would be connected as well. I mean, Lucifer, some people believe Jesus was Lucifer. They were both described as the morning star. Lucifer was described as the morning star, and Jesus was described as the morning star in Revelations. That implies that they're the same person.
That would seem pretty heretical.
That would definitely be heretical to the church, but it comes from a lack of understanding of what Lucifer really is. You know, according to the Grail legends, the Holy Grail was, this is Wolfram von Eschenbach's Parzival. It talks about how the Grail was guarded by the Templars, but the Grail was originally an emerald that was in the crown of Lucifer, and that there was a war in heaven, and that there were neutral angels that didn't participate in the fighting, and that they brought this emerald that had come out of the crown of Lucifer to earth to hide it, and that this emerald was the Holy Grail. Well, according to the Hermetic tradition, the Alchemical tradition, this emerald was the emerald tablet of Hermes, which gave the instructions on how to create the Philosopher's Stone, which was connected to this Manna.
Mm-hmm. And
that this tablet was also known as the Tablet of Testimony, which was the tablet that Moses brought down two sets of tablets. One was the Ten Commandments, and the other was known as the Tablet of Testimony. And he deemed that the people weren't ready yet for the Tablet of Testimony, and so he broke it into pieces, according to the Bible. So this Tablet of Testimony was the Tablet of Hermes, the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, which was the emerald that was in the crown of Lucifer that the neutral angels brought to earth.
I thought the tablet that Moses destroyed was the Ten Commandments, and then he had to go get it changed or fixed, rather.
No, it was the Tablet of Testimony. There were two sets of tablets. You know, there was the Ten Commandments and the Tablet of Testimony. So the Ten Commandments were preserved in the Ark.
Mm-hmm.
The Tablet of Testimony was broken apart.
When he saw them worshiping Baal.
When he saw them worshiping the golden calf,
mm-hmm.
that he then burnt into a powder,
mm-hmm.
that he sprinkled onto the water to feed to the Hebrews.
Mm-hmm.
He was turning the gold into the white manna.
Mm-hmm.
It was transmutation. It was the alchemical process.
Interesting.
So this science of alchemy, which came out of Egypt, was believed to be originally the science of Atlantis.
Wasn't Egypt called Alchemet?
Alchemet. Yeah, Kemet. So Chem or Kemet was the name of ancient Egypt, and that's where alchemy comes from. Alchemet. Alchemy. It's the science of ancient Egypt, which was believed to be the science of Utlant originally, the science of Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, that word Utlant could be found at Edfu, at the Temple of Horus at Edfu. There's something that's known as the building text at Edfu. It's on the temple walls. It shows the Needers coming from Utlant and settling in Egypt prior to the cataclysm. And then it describes there being this great cataclysm that sunk Utlant, the original homeland of Utlant, and so they just settled in Egypt. And then according to the Egyptian texts, the gods, these Needers, ruled Egypt for thousands of years before they then handed over that rulership to the pharaohs. And then the Pharaoh literally means son of God. Mm-hmm. That's what it means. So the Pharaoh would go through an initiation rite where they would ultimately they'd be blessed with crocodile fat, the oil of crocodile fat, and they would be anointed on the head, which would was said to that feeling of the oil being poured over the head was the same feeling as the crown chakra opening up. Mm. And this is what that crown chakra opening up was said to be the experience of oneness. Symbolically, it represented the pieces of Osiris all coming back together again into oneness. Or from a Gnostic standpoint, we were born into this world, everything appears separate. But then when we experience Gnosis, we recognize it's all part of the oneness. Mm. It all comes back into the oneness. And that feeling of the crown chakra opening up is there. This was alluded to in Psalm 133, where it says, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together as one," or as one mind. "It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that ran down to the skirts of his garments, promising life forevermore," or eternal life. It's said that as that crown chakra opens up, what's really happening is the pineal and the pituitary glands are releasing a dimethyltryptamine, DMT, mm-hmm. And which is that psychotropic. It's released when we die, mm-hmm. But it also can be released when we ingest certain substances, particularly derived from acacia in the Holy Land. Part of that burning the bush down and then extracting those salts out, doing that alchemical process to it. But it's also melatonin is also released from the pineal gland, which is a chemical messenger for serotonin, which is released from the pituitary gland, the pituitary gland. So the pineal gland releases the melatonin, which causes the pituitary gland to release serotonin, which regulates all the other glands of the body down to the gonads or down to the skirts of the garments, and tells the body how to adapt to its environment. It turns on and off to certain genes and allows you to resonate with your environment. So this was the process of symbolically the oil being poured over the head, which feels that feeling of that crown chakra opening up. down to the skirts of the garments that's alluded to in Psalm 133. It's also where the word Christos comes from, or Christ. It's anointing, means anointed, which was, again, that same feeling of the crown chakra opening up. And by the way, if we take the word Christos and remove the T, which is the cross, the Tau, out of the word Christos, we get the word Chrysos, which is the Greek word for gold. So it was metaphor. These things all had metaphors. Like even in ancient Egyptian, the word light or stone was the word ben. But if we reverse it, we get the word neb, which meant gold in ancient Egyptian. And there were a lot of Egyptian words that were like that, like Aiwas meant consciousness, Siwa meant brain, in ancient Egyptian. So one was the reverse of the other.
Interesting.
So this was common in ancient Egypt, but it got carried through into Greek and into Hebrew. And so these are some of the mysteries,
Hey, dude, we're going to pause the conversation right there, but don't worry, there is still a lot more to come. Because if the Templars really recovered these ancient Arks and they preserved this knowledge for centuries, well, the obvious question is, where are the Arks now? In part 2, Tim takes us from Oak Island and the American Revolution to secret Templar vaults hidden somewhere in the United States right now. He also explains why he believes those vaults still contain 6 Arks, lost religious texts, and artifacts that will absolutely change our understanding of history. And even, according to Tim, one of those vaults may finally be opened soon. He shares generally where it is and when it'll be opened. It's a fascinating episode, so make sure you check it out, and make sure you subscribe to Camp so that you can know exactly when it drops and where to find it.